Hello, and thank you for joining AARP Missouri. And for our Brain Matters virtual series, I'm Diane Hall, Community Outreach Director for AARP Missouri. Now, if you saw the live presentation, you know that this is not a recording of the original webinar. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty and did not get a recording. But we felt so strongly that the topic of caregiver stress was just too important to let it go. And of course, our friends at the Alzheimer's Association agreed with us. So we are going to re-record the outstanding presentation on managing caregiver stress to make sure that we're able to share it with you. And sharing information is a big part of what I do at AARP in Missouri to help people live their best lives. At AARP Missouri, we work to enhance the lives of all people 50 plus and their families. We have resources and information online at aarp.org/mo, like you just heard in the little commercial we ran. And we have information about local AARP activities and events at aarp.org/local. Our efforts to help people live their best lives include many things. Virtual options like this one, which are good for caregivers or anybody who faces challenges attending in-person events. We also have resources for protecting yourself against fraud through online information or local shred events. And we're working on livable communities, which goes way beyond housing to include transportation, things like our Moving It fitness classes that are online and our in-person Walk with a Doc program, and also today's series, Brain Matters. We do hope you will take advantage of AARP's resources and information. You can go to aarp.org/local to find out more about what we have to offer near you. Now I'd like to introduce Amelia Cottle, an educator and advocate on Alzheimer's and dementia diseases. Amelia, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Diane. I'm so pleased to be here again. This is good.
Yeah, again. Well, Amelia is also a community educator with the Alzheimer's Association, and she volunteers with the Alzheimer's Association as a way to honor the memory of her late husband, Brian, who was diagnosed with younger onset Alzheimer's disease at age 52 and died June 17, 2017. Amelia has cared for her husband and her father, who died since then of vascular dementia. And since Brian's death, she has dedicated her time and energy to advocacy and education, raising awareness and funds for Alzheimer's and dementia education, research, and support. In addition to her work as an educator, a community educator, she facilitates 4 caregiver resource support groups and acts as an advocate, support system, and friend for many caregivers in rural Missouri. She's also represented the Alzheimer's Association in various media interviews and lobbied state officials. And I could go on, but we do have a great presentation to get to again. Amelia, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Diane. I'm so pleased and honored to be here. I am a huge fan of AARP and have been for a long time. And I recommend it to people who are caregivers and share the resources in my support groups to everyone. So before I share my screen, I'm just going to tell everybody, as I always advocate, breathe. Breathe in, breathe out. Do the 4 square breathing. Diane's doing it. 4 square breathing. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 4. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 4. It's amazing how much we forget about our breathing. And the other is, while you're sitting through this presentation, getting this great information and learning new things, stretch. Lift those shoulders, stretch back, lift up, stretch. You know, we can sit in a chair and still get exercise. Now, I can't do that because I'm the presenter, but I'm telling you, as you're watching this, squeeze those butt muscles, lift those feet, rotate those ankles, do all of those things. Every movement we make helps. And Diane's going to keep doing them while I get to the share my screen. And I'm going to share both some stress relieving tips with you and a little tiny bit of my story, because that's how I learned these things. So here we go with share screen. And then I'm going to try to find my PowerPoint. So let's see. There we go. I have yet to learn how to do this smoothly, so I apologize to everyone who's watching it go with the flow. And there we are, talking about caregiver stress. Now, sent in some questions, and we're going to make sure that we address some of those questions both at the end again, and we're also going to make sure that you know that you can always email or go online or go to an 800 number and ask those questions. That's what information is. Information is our power. So here we go. I'm sharing this picture with you because this is my reason for being here. The person on the left is my husband, Brian. My darling, wonderful husband, diagnosed at age 52. And my dear daddy, my daddy, Earl. I've had other experiences of caregiving because as the late, great, wonderful, gosh, we're going to miss her, Rosalind Carter said, one of us will be a caregiver, need caregiving, and that's how it works. Life is including caregiving. We're all going to be caregivers in some way or another. So let's go on to who is a caregiver. Now, I think this is really important. We understand who is a caregiver. That's the most used term for someone who's providing occasional or 24/7 care for a person who's no longer autonomous and needs help with some of their activities of daily living and their instrumental activities of daily living. Activities of daily living are those things that we fix a meal, we get dressed, we take a shower, we do some laundry. But instrumental activities of daily living are important too. And that means managing our bills, taking care of our home, getting from place to place, money, medicines, technology, and travel. Some people prefer the term care partner. And in the UK, if you're reading any wonderful information from the UK, they use the term carer. We may start out as care partners, but as the journey progresses, we literally become caregivers. We are that person's guide, their assistant, and their touchstone. Now, I got a little tiny bit of a lecture from my husband's neurologist because he reminded me that my husband was actually a care partner much longer than I gave him credit for. Not everyone with a dementia disease or any of the other chronic illnesses has that ability to be continually involved in their care. And in dementia disease, it reaches a point where they can't be. But Brian sure tried. So yes, he was my care partner. Now, I think it's important that we say, what is a caregiver or who is a caregiver? We serve as a nurse, a guardian, behavior manager, nutritionist, cook, companion and comforter, maid and laundry attendant, safety officer, administrator, chief financial officer, key decision maker, home repair specialist, activity and travel director, family counselor and diplomat, professional and medical liaison. There is this huge list, including barber, nail tech, researcher, and as I recall, one thing that just finally was the one more thing that broke me was I was told I had to floss his teeth. It was just one more thing. So who is a caregiver? What I want to remind you as a caregiver is that no one brings us a casserole. Isn't that what we do when someone dies and we take food to the family? There's 17 lasagnas and 47 desserts, and we all eat horrible things in the week before the preparation for the funeral and after the funeral. When someone is ill with has a long-term illness, no one brings a casserole. There's no meal train for you. So as a caregiver, sometimes you're a little bit forgotten. Dementia diseases progress over many years. For me, it was 5 years. For other people, it's 10 to 20. And it's easy for people to forget that we as caregivers are exhausted, overwhelmed, and man, we are so overcooking. As one of my caregivers who cared for her husband with chronic kidney disease and her mother with dementia said, people respond well at time of crisis or crises, but not at all well in times of chronicity. Yet, as a caregiver, you will find BFFs and new BFFs. best forever friends. These are the people who are there for you from diagnosis to journeys in and beyond. And they are amazing. But don't forget, as a caregiver, you also have the people who are the vanishing, those people who vanish after diagnosis and only reappear at your loved one's funeral. I give them credit, or I try to. They don't know how to cope with dementia, as if I did as a caregiver. They think dementia is catching, or there is a stigma attached to it, or they find it too hard to watch someone they love degenerating, as if you, as the caregiver and the family, don't find it too hard to. It took everything I had not to strangle the person who came up to me at my husband's celebration of life and told me, "I'm so sorry I was never there." I was very polite and just walked away because that was all I could do. And it's true, he was never there, yet he'd known my husband since first grade. And then last of all, we caregivers cope with the people we call the pigeon poopers. Those people who fly in, tell you what you should do, poop all over everything, and then they leave. Back to who is a caregiver. When a person is diagnosed with dementia, they're also often noted as the patient. We firmly believe that the patient is not a singular. There should be two patients, the person with dementia and the caregiver. Most dementia caregivers are women, even though women are more likely to develop dementia disease. As caregivers, men deal with the expectation of being tough. They often doubt themselves. Sometimes they have a steeper learning curve, but many men, as caregivers, get more assistance than women do. As a caregiver, we believe that you need a care team. And let's see who is on the care team. You, obviously, as the main caregiver. The person with dementia is part of the care team. One thing I want to note about the person with dementia, apathy is a huge part of dementia diseases. So here you are as the caregiver, the care partner, the carer, and you're trying and you're hustling and you're rustling and you're learning and you're getting things done, you're making things happen. And the person with dementia doesn't notice, doesn't care, doesn't help. As the brain degenerates in dementia disease, apathy is the most overwhelming part of the disease for many. They just can't summon up the care. And back to you as the busy bee. So we look to families, our birth families, chosen families. We look to friends, your loved ones' friends. We look to the healthcare providers, including palliative care and hospice. We look to the Alzheimer's Association. And then we look to those wonderful resources that AARP and other organizations offer us. What is important in caregiving, though, is understanding who needs care. Yeah, I know you know who needs care, but who or whom we care for affects our caregiving. Are you caring for a spouse? Are you caring for a partner? There's some legal stuff in there when you're caring for a partner. Are you caring for an ex-spouse, a former husband or wife? It happens. Or a former partner. Are you caring for a parent or parents? An adult child who may have developed a dementia disease, a sibling, your in-laws, your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, maybe a grandparent-in-law, grandparents, other relatives, or perhaps a friend. Who we are caring for absolutely affects stress as a caregiver. Now, bear with me as we drive down the highway of human existence with a full trunk. When we get ready to travel, depending on what we're driving, we throw our luggage in the trunk. And as we walk through our days on this earth, we carry luggage and baggage. Luggage is our life experiences, mostly good, growing up, learning, doing things, educating, hobbies, careers. And also luggage is our hopes for the future, which seem somewhat dashed as we are getting immersed in caregiving. But baggage is also a part of our life experiences, mostly bad or painful or grief, losses, all of those things. It weighs a lot, yet we carry it with us all the time. It's important when you're thinking about being a caregiver and looking at ways to reduce your stress to think about the luggage and the baggage that goes with your life. Who are you or who were you before the dementia journey? Think about your luggage. Think about your baggage. Think about both of those. It's also important as a caregiver to think about the person that you're caring for. Who is or who was the person you were caring for? Were they a big career person? Were they a professional tradesperson? Were they a stay-at-home parent? What did they do for a living? What was their life like? It's important to understand the luggage and baggage they carry with them because it does not go away in dementia. Eventually, it becomes moot, but it certainly affects the early and middle stages of caregiving. It's also important in caregiving, in helping you understand stress, is what is or what was the state of your relationship with the person you're caring for? Did you have a good marriage with your spouse? Maybe you can continue that on. Did you have a good relationship with your mother or father who you're caring for? Maybe that can continue on. Those are things that we need to understand as we're looking at the caregiving burden that we have and how to deal with the stress of caregiving. Now, I'm going to get to the part where we talk about you. And that's why you're watching this program. That's why we're providing this program for brain health. And we're talking about taking care of you. I know you hear it. You've heard it. If you're a new caregiver, you're going to hear people say that and you're going, leave me alone. I got this. Or how can I do that when I'm the full-time caregiver for this person? The answer is that if you don't, there are consequences. And we're wanting to give you tools to help you deal with the stress. The reason I went through all this information beforehand is so you understand it's not just oh, all of a sudden I'm a caregiver. Everything that happened prior in your life and the person with dementia that you're caring for is important. It's an important part of understanding why things happen. I don't spend time in this presentation talking about what dementia is and defining it. It's a really important program that you can get through the AARP or through the Alzheimer's organization. It's important that we understand the disease, but this is also part of understanding what you're dealing with as a caregiver. And truly, 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 this is not a sprint. I was told that, and I remembered it. It is a marathon journey. And every marathon has a support team. People don't just run a marathon. Oh, today I'm going to run a marathon. No, they have helpers. They outline what they need. They plan, they train, they educate themselves. And taking care of yourself ensures that you can care for your loved one and other people who might need you. Who knows else you have in the home or people who need your help. At the time of my husband's diagnosis, late in his illness, I was also helping care for a beloved family friend with no family who is in his late 80s. At one point, I actually had to turn his care over to a geriatric care manager because I knew I could not meet his needs. Not everyone has that option. I did, I took it, and sometime after my husband passed, I picked back up his care until he died at age 90. But taking care of yourself ensures you can care for your loved one and the others who need you. And taking care of yourself means that you can survive. We need for you to survive. Your loved one needs for you to survive. You need for you to survive. I need to remind you that you cannot give from an empty vessel. No matter how much you want to give to your loved one and do the things for them, if you're empty, there's nothing to give. There is a huge percentage of caregivers who die before their loved one. We estimate between 40 and 70% of caregivers die before the person they're caring for, the person who has a terminal disease. As a matter of fact, over 70% of the people who do not make it are people who are over 70. Now you know why we care so deeply. We want to talk about your health because stress is a huge part of our health. As a matter of fact, stress is health. Stress is a health negative. And we want to find ways to help you with your mental health, your emotional health, physical health, and family health. These are things that I can't go into in great detail, but what I'm teaching are the basics so you can think about them. And oh, by the way, here's a reminder, do a little stretching. Up with those shoulders, rotate that neck, wiggle your butt. See, you just moved and did a little stretching. So before dementia disease, what was your mental health like? Honestly assess what it was like before dementia upended your world. These are important things to remember. None of us is perfect. None of us has everything in a perfect line, perfectly straight, lined up. We don't. We're all human. And as caregivers, looking at who we are as a human is very, very important. Depression and anxiety are important. Were we depressed and anxious before? It's possible, of course. I found that I was deeply anxious and had mild depression in the years before my husband was actually diagnosed. Once he was diagnosed, I understood where that depression and anxiety came from. But until he was diagnosed, it was all on me. I thought it was me. And now I knew it wasn't me. That doesn't mean I wasn't still anxious and that I still didn't get depressed about the situation, but it meant, oh, now I understand. And I hope in this presentation, you have moments of, oh, now I understand. Because all of these things can happen to you. Mental health tools. Evaluate your mental health often. Are you finding yourself breathing heavily or not being able to catch your breath or being all tensed up and realizing that a muscle is hurting because you're so tense? It is totally normal for you to feel overwhelmed, depressed, and anxious. Of course you do. Your loved one with dementia is also feeling overwhelmed, stressed, and anxious. That is part of the dementia journey. But by giving you the tools to help you, we're going to help make that better. And your mental health needs are the most important. Yours, then theirs. Talk to your mental health, your healthcare provider about your mental health. Consider counseling and therapy in person or online or both. These things will help you very, very much. Every caregiver that I work with who tells me they've gone through therapy and counseling has been so thankful. And of course, I want you to participate in support groups because I know that they work. I started a support group the year my husband was diagnosed, and I kept up with them. And now I'm a facilitator of those, knowing how much it means to have someone who understands what's going on up here in our head and in our heart. Keep assessing that mental health. AARP, the Alzheimer's Association, and other people have tools for you, and you will find it helpful to talk to caregivers about what is going on. Okay, back to your health. Let's talk about your emotional health. Yeah, there's mental health, and then there's emotional health. Mental health is things that we possibly may have that are part of us. Bipolar disorder, other things, acute depression. But emotional health is how we're feeling about what's going on. And it causes stress for us in so many ways. We can have the emotion of, I'm going to deny it. This isn't happening. This isn't real. We can be angry or frustrated. And yeah, it's okay to be angry and frustrated, but it doesn't help us. We can withdraw from people because, like, I cannot deal with another person telling me what to do or how sorry they are. Remember the pigeon poopers, the people who come in, tell us what to do? Those are the people that we want to avoid. And sometimes by avoiding them, we avoid the very people who can help us. And of course, we're anxious about the future. Wouldn't you be? Understanding that we have these feelings and then using the tools that we need to make us feel better. Often depression can break us. This is why I advocate that you find help, either through therapy, support groups, counseling, medicine, or a combination of the above. Stress can exhaust you, and it makes it almost impossible for you to get the things done you want to do. Of course, we're sleepless. Why wouldn't we be? Sometimes our loved one is sleepless and then we're sleepless. We can be irritable. We can have problems concentrating, and then we can have health problems that were before, during, or after. And these are important. So managing our emotional health helps us manage the stress, to be realistic, to be accepting, to be honest, to breathe in, hunch those shoulders again, stretch those shoulders, roll that neck, clench that butt. All of these things help our body relieve stress just by movement. Know that you are doing your best. You really, really are. You're doing the very best you can in awful circumstances. Take a break. I spent a lot of time in the bathroom because my husband actually wouldn't bother me in the bathroom. I might just stand in there and breathe. I might just stand in there and run my hands under cold water or cry. But take a break in any way that you can get a break. Accepting the changes as they occur, because this is a marathon. Changes will happen, changes will occur. And if you can plan ahead for the changes, whether or not they happen or not, you're ready. And that's a lot of what makes us get through life, planning ahead. The same way through getting life through life as a caregiver with a person with dementia. Plan ahead, educate yourself. And this is the opportunity to use your imagining creativity. I became a creative person, and I've never been described as that, but I could be creative and I could lie like a champ, because I found a lot of times lying helped my husband realize I cared, I was trying, but he wouldn't obsess about something. So creative lying was great. And I ask you to find the humor, because there is humor there. You're not laughing at your loved one's disease. No, but you're laughing at the situation. Laughing releases chemicals in our body and helps us. And if you need to, watch cartoons. I think it'd be fun to watch some cartoons that we remember that made us laugh. Laughter, it really is a good medicine, both for you and your person that you're caring for. Okay, we get to the part where we're going to talk about your physical health. And oh my gosh, I can see heads right now going, how am I supposed to find time for this? You've been hearing this your whole life. This isn't new. Our physical health is really important. We sometimes ignore our actual body, our physical self, because when it works, it's great. It just chugs along, doing what it's supposed to do. Here we are, this meat puppet, this skeleton inside, and we've got this wonderful brain that makes everything happen until it doesn't. And we need to remember that caregiving is stressful on our body, and stress harms us. Physical activity is shown to increase cognition, to reduce stress, to help our heart, to help our brain. We advocate physical health, physical exercise, physical activity every day for yourself and for your loved one. I've read books by people with Alzheimer's who said that their cognition before exercise was changed after exercise. They were able to think clearer. If they're thinking with more clarity, we can think with more clarity with exercise. And I'm not asking you or telling you in this presentation to go out and do Taekwondo in a marathon. 10 minutes of moving, of exercise, of stretching, of 4 square breathing. Bend over, bend your knees, squeeze your leg muscles, stretch your ankle. All of these things as we go through a day can be done. Especially if you're watching that cartoon and laughing at the same time. Laugh, giggle, roll around, and frolic, skip, and swing. At an Alzheimer's walk recently, I took a man over to the swing set and said, let's swing. And he said, I haven't been on a swing in 60 years. And he got on the swing and he laughed. Laughter is great medicine and stress reducing. So frolic, skip, and swing. And you've heard this one too, but it's proven. No one's blowing smoke at you. If you eat a healthy diet, your body is healthier. You have more ability, you have more stamina. Give it a try. Of course, we have physical health habits, and these are important that we realize that they're there. And I'm not going to tell you that I didn't drink that occasional glass of wine while caregiving. Sometimes that was the only thing that got me through the night. Coffee is good too. A hot cup of tea, maybe a bowl of chicken noodle soup. But on the alcohol end, Keep it to a minimum because it eventually too much can interfere with our sleep. Don't deny yourself those comfort foods. If you need a Little Debbie Swiss roll, have a Little Debbie Swiss roll. If you need some really soupy, goopy macaroni and cheese, have some macaroni and cheese. Don't have it every day. Just remember those are comforts, and sometimes in caregiving, we need all the comfort we can get. Now, a reminder that you may already have physical health issues. You could have an illness. You could be diabetic. You could have chronic conditions. Alzheimer's and dementia diseases don't care. Life just goes on after diagnosis. You can get an illness. You can get COVID. You can get pneumonia. You can break a leg. All of these things don't stop because dementia disease is diagnosed. We may feel that the world ended. It just kept spinning. So addressing your own health issues is a part of caregiving and reducing caregiver stress. Go to those healthcare appointments, take your medicines, and continue any treatments that you need. If it doesn't feel right, get it checked. We now have quick clinics, urgent care clinics, telehealth clinics are wonderful. We can Zoom into our physician, our care provider, and say, I need some help. And it is much easier than getting in the car. Please remember that caregiving is a workout. It is stressful on your body. And I want to remind you of this by emphasizing in a care facility, caregivers, the CNAs, the CMTs, the nurses, the LPNs, everybody, these are people who are trained to be caregivers. They undergo training for lifting. They undergo training for transport. They undergo training for everything that we get no training for. As a matter of fact, people in care facilities, the professionals, are not allowed to do many of the things we do, but we do them anyway. So we have a physical challenge in front of us. Taking care of ourselves to meet the physical challenge is really important. Lifting another human is hard. Lack of quality sleep drains us and takes our strength away. It is hard work to care for someone, ourselves, and for others. So learn to lift safely. Keep yourself strong. So 4 square breathing, hunch those shoulders, stretch those legs, right? And when I tell you to relax, you're looking at me, I can see everyone rolling their eyes. But there are ways to reduce stress and ways to help you relax. Visualization, meditation, breathing exercises, and progressive muscle relaxation. Those really work well. So one last note on health. Let's talk about family health. When a person is diagnosed with a dementia disease and you become a caregiver, you still have a family, we hope. You have a chosen family, a birth family, great friends, bad friends. There is still a community, a village around you. Many times we have multi-generational families living under the same roof. Grandpa or grandpa, adults, their older children, and maybe grandchildren or younger children. So multi-generational families need to exercise the care and caution that we talk about in stress and in taking care of our health and reducing stress. We also have the cultural expectations that come from, well, you're the daughter. It's your job to care for your parent. While we may not agree with these cultural expectations, they are part of our world. They are part of how people react to caregiving situations. We may be sandwich caregivers. I remember a young woman named Amy whose husband was diagnosed with FTD, frontal temporal lobe dementia. She was pregnant with her 4th child at the time her husband was diagnosed. So she was caring for him, a newborn, and 3 other children. Also, you may be caring for your parent, yet you have teenagers in the home, and we already know how busy those schedules are. ALZ.org, AARP, and other organizations offer resources online to help you understand how to help your children, your grandchildren. Those are the people that you care about. It causes you stress and anxiety worrying about them too. So find those resources for them. because you can help guide others through the journey. We had a team we called Team Coddle. It was very important to us to be a team. And my son had a name for it, which I can't do on this program, but we were Team Coddle. And I really feel that we worked well together as a team. And for a 25 to 30-year-old who never ever expected to have this happen in his life to his father, and who ended up being as gentle and kind as you can be. I mean, whoever at that age imagined that you would be helping change your father's diaper? He did it, though. He did it with love, and he did it well. We were Team Coddle. The last thing I want to address in relation to stress is grief. I don't think it gets talked about enough, but we're grieving all of the time. There's a lot of grief in a dementia diagnosis, and it affects our physical, mental, emotional, and family health. It is always there. Grief is the elephant in the room. We have something that we think is important to explain to caregivers about grief is anticipatory grief. It is the grief that occurs before death. It is very common among people who are facing the eventual death of their loved one or their own death. We're anticipating, not the person has died and now we're grieving, but anticipating what it is and not knowing. You know, the not knowing in a lot of this is very difficult for us. Grief is always there for us, and it is important to express your pain and let yourself grieve. There is a lot of release in saying, I'm grieving now. Yes, my husband is still alive, but I know he will die. I don't know when, and I need someone to talk to openly about this. There's also something we call ambiguous grief. It is grief that cannot be resolved. We like to think that we can fix things, that we can make things happen, make things work, bring things to an end. But ambiguous grief is right now grief that cannot be resolved. So I want to touch back to caregiving and what is your caregiving toolbox? I use this because it helps me teach and educate. Having a toolbox means that you have the tools in place to help you cope with stress, to help you help yourself. And the number one tool in that toolbox is you. I did say you cannot give from an empty vessel, and you can't. But if you take care of you, then you can. You can survive the caregiving journey. There are things that may happen that we have no control over, but we do have control how we take care of ourselves, how we educate ourselves, how we educate others in our family, how we rally people around us. And that is where we go with tool number 2. And this tool has many pieces, maybe like a multi-tool, right? The multi-tool is the one with the 3 screwdriver heads, a little funky scissors, all sorts of things in it. Well, tool number 2 is your multi-tool. Tool number 2 is the person with dementia, as long as they're able to help you. And from what I read and what I know from my experience, a person with dementia wants to help. They need to feel some kind of independence and autonomy. They want respect and dignity, and we should be giving that to them. As long as they can help, they are one of the tools in your toolbox. Family, birth or chosen, it doesn't matter. Those people can help, and they should. Why should the burden of caregiving only fall on a single person? When we spread out the task and we enroll others to help us, then we have less stress and we can better handle the caregiving journey. We can handle that with our family with shared calendars or family meetings, ways to get together so we can work together and not let all the stress of caregiving fall on one individual. Remember those friends? Those friends are very important, and the ones that stick with us are amazing. They want to help, and we need to learn to ask them to help and to tell them what we need. Friends can help us with things that we don't think about. We do automatically. I take out the trash on Tuesday morning. That's trash day. You get the oil changed in the car every so many thousand miles. You do this, you do that. Why not ask a friend or a family member to accomplish those tasks for you? They're small, They may seem insignificant, but they're lifesavers for you. It's one more thing that you don't have to worry about. Reach out to your community. They're part of your toolbox. Our community, our churches, Aging Best, organizations are very important. I do know a caregiver who joined a specific church group deliberately because she knew that they were the kind of church that helped their members. And she was very pleased and very thankful. And she returned the favor later by staying as a part of the church and helping other people that the church reached out to help. Your community has resources, your senior centers. All of those things are helpful things and should be in your toolbox. Of course, your healthcare professionals, the Alzheimer's Association, or whichever organization that is meeting and giving you information related to the dementia disease that your loved one had. But general information is so helpful. And of course, the AARP website, their online classes, these are incredible tools. Education. That is so important. And we talk about education. The more education we have about what we're dealing with in the dementia world, the better we're able to cope and to deal and to care give. We may not need to pull those education pieces out of our toolbox, but we know how it works. We know what we might expect because every dementia journey is different. And education not only helps us in the toolbox, it broadens our mind. It helps us understand our loved one with the dementia disease. Technology is so amazing. And when I mention these online resources, I mean these online resources. You can get apps on your phone. You can use your laptop or your computer. Really, the phone is our Library of Alexandria of information. Rural caregivers especially use technology, especially use their smartphones. They need to. They need to have information, and they live far out in the boonies, and they can't get somewhere, but they can use their phone. There are apps, calendars, health resources. All of these things are available to them. Technology, being able to talk to your physician, being able to place a pharmacy order without having to go somewhere is really amazing. Embrace the technology and use it through the resources that are offered to you. I had to throw this in before we finish, and I want to tell you that humor really does help. In our support groups, we laugh. There's a lot of laughing. Sometimes we are crying, we are laughing so much. Laughing is good for us. Laughter releases good chemicals for us. And if we can't laugh at the absurdity of life, absurdity of dementia, the craziness that happens, we hold stress in. And laughter really is a beautiful thing. So I used to work in radio. I used to work in television, and we always had a meter, and we had to pay attention to the needle on the meter. And some of you remember that from your stereos. When it got into the red zone, it was bouncing. Those are the times you're like, oh, what's going on? And that's when we have to say, we're going to laugh. And the last tool in your toolbox, actually the toolbox cover, or maybe it's the toolbox, and is love. Many people don't have a good relationship with the person that they're caring for. They may not have a good relationship with them at all. But self-love will get us through. And if you do love the person you're caring for, that helps even more. Where they're human, this is not their fault. And we want to give them that love and dedication that they need. So they have respect and dignity, but that we have respect and dignity, and that we care for ourselves. Because taking care of you is the most important thing you can do. You can't give from an empty vessel. There is no more to slurp out of that chocolate malt container. You can't get any more. When it's empty, it's gone. Yeah, you can take your finger and rub it around to get the last of the chocolate syrup, but when it's gone, it's gone. That's why physical health, mental health, emotional health, and family health really, really matter. And Diane, I put up the 24/7 helpline, alz.org website. There's a community resource finder there, Alzheimer's Navigator, but all you have to do is go to these websites and then explore and mark the places where you can find information that will help you with all of the things that we talked about today.
Thanks for that, Amelia. Now, I know this is where we would do Q&A in the original session, and I think you remembered a couple of the questions, so I'm going to let you answer those questions before we wrap up. And as always, you can always contact the Alzheimer's Association through the information Amelia just gave, or you can go to aarp.org/caregiving to find out answers to all kinds of caregiving questions through us. But you have a couple of specific questions people ask that are good to answer on air. So go right ahead, Amelia.
One of the questions that people ask us was related to hospice care. And I added hospice care into this re-recording because it's really important to realize that they are part of the team. Hospice is available to people with a terminal diagnosis. We're talking specifically about dementia diseases. So people with dementia diseases and hospice care. It is important to be aware that hospice and palliative care are available, that hospice care can be arranged ahead of time, become a part of your toolbox, just like I was talking about, because hospice is paid for by Medicare. So you're not out any money, and it's a very, very, very organized, overarching service available to us. Hospice care will come in and evaluate your loved one. Even if they're not eligible, that means that you have them ready. They're enrolled. That's little check off the check box. And you can keep updated with them. You need a referral from your physician for your loved one to be in hospice care. My husband was enrolled in hospice care a year before he actually died, but we didn't start using hospice care until about 3 months before he died, but I had it in the toolbox. So, and hospice care is available to you for your loved one with dementia, even if there are other diseases. One of the ones that came up was chronic kidney disease or end-stage kidney disease. Well, of course, hospice doesn't care. They care that you need assistance, that you will have quality of life and the best care you have. And then palliative care before that. Palliative care can help you. So that's another resource that we wanted to talk about.
It's really important that people know all those resources that are available for that toolbox. That's one of the things in AARP's Prepare to Care is to build that team and to find all the tools that are available for you. AARP has state-specific resource guides that help you find the organizations and agencies that are available to you in your community so that you can look those things up. And it's by each state. So there's one from Missouri, but if you're listening from some other state for some reason, they're available for all the states and territories. Now, were there other questions that you had, or was hospice the main one?
Well, the other thing that we talked about was related to when do you know? When do you know? When it's time to enroll your loved one in hospice, or when I frequently run into from caregivers, how do I know when it's time to put my loved one in a care home? Well, the answer to that is we don't know when it's time to put your loved one in a care home because every person is different. But if you're thinking about it, if it's becoming an overwhelming stress burden for you, physical burden, it's time. Don't wait until you collapse. Don't wait until you have a heart attack. Do it now. And so we always encourage people in terms of care facilities, be aware of what's out there. Reference the state facilities that are on those online lists. Be aware of what's out there because you can't go out tomorrow and learn everything there is to know about care facilities. Do it ahead of time. Take tours. I did tours even though I never placed my husband. For my dad, because my husband was ill during my dad's transition, it was later than it should have been. And the same thing with hospice care. Planning ahead will help us very greatly.
Yeah, I think this is one of the things that I find most challenging in my job. We encourage people to prepare to care. That's the name of the main booklet that AARP has. But it's really hard to convince people to prepare to care ahead of time. It seems like it's always an urgent situation. So the more that you can prepare ahead of time, even if you never use it, like you're talking about, even if you never tap into that resource, having it in that toolbox, having it ready to go, it can make a world of difference if you do need it.
Amen, sister. That is absolutely, write that on the wall.
Where I feel like I should sometimes. All right. That you feel are important that we need to share.
Other than plan, prepare, educate, these things are important. It doesn't explode our brain to learn. It expands our brain and helps us have tools. And that's where learning and education from everyone comes in.
Absolutely. And just, even if you learn something you don't need, you're going to find somebody else who is going to need it. You can share that with them.
Absolutely. And sharing information with other people who need it is part of caregiving. It is amazing how much benefit you will get from giving to someone, even while you're in need as a caregiver. Give a little bit to someone, share one thing with them, send them a card, for heaven's sake. There's a benefit in giving out of ourselves, because I say you can't give from an empty vessel, but when you're taking care of yourself and you give a little bit, then you get more back.
Absolutely. Well, Amelia, I really want to thank you for connecting us with all of the important information about stress management for caregivers, because self-care, as you've been saying repeatedly, is really, really important. And we appreciate the insight through the Alzheimer's Association lens.
Thank you. The opportunity to work with you is really valuable, and that's what we all need to do, because it really takes more than a village to make all of this work.
Absolutely. It takes a whole community all around the world, really. There's all kinds of models that we could
Yes.
take, but we don't have all day. So we want to thank all of you who to us and for joining us to learn about how caregivers can learn to better manage the stresses that you encounter when caring for a loved one. We hope that you've enjoyed the 2023 AARP Missouri and Alzheimer's Association Brain Matters series. Please keep an eye out on aarp.org/local for our upcoming 2024 offerings. And there's a spoiler alert. We're going to be working with the Alzheimer's Association again. In the meantime, please visit alz.org for more information on how you can get caregiver information you can use right now. You can also go to aarp.org/caregiver. We have like 90 some odd resources at the bottom of that page, so scroll all the way down. We want to thank you again for your day with us. Thanks, everybody, and goodbye.